Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and welcome to Let's Talk About It. We're here on this Thursday night. We're grateful with our guest that's here tonight, and for all of you who are watching by Facebook Live or Zoom, thank you for tuning in tonight. This is a great opportunity tonight that we have to talk about some excellent information. And so tonight we will deal with the 2020 election, what you need to know. We want to make sure that everybody is informed. Whatever questions you have tonight, please take the opportunity and put them in the chat box. Don't think your questions are too stupid or too deep. Put it in. If we can't answer it, we'll get it back to you next week. But I think we have someone here tonight that's well qualified to answer all of your questions concerning this 2020 election. And so thank all of you again for tuning in. If you have questions on Facebook Live, please type it in and we'll make sure that your question get heard and answered. And so I'm honored and happy tonight to have with us the Honorable Chris Ray. He is the former mayor of Spring Lake, North Carolina. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself, and then I'll take it over and we'll get this show on the road.
All right, well, thank you so much, Bishop Jones, for extending the invitation for me to be here tonight to speak with not only you, but also the folks from your church and any other community folks that have decided to join tonight to learn about or to get more information about this upcoming 2020 election. Again, I am Brother Chris Ray. I am born here in the St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. So for any parishioners that you have that may be there from the Virgin Islands, I just want to say I'm here in the VI. I'm celebrating my 43rd birthday this weekend, and I decided to come on back home. But I grew up in North Carolina. Went to East Carolina University undergrad. I had an opportunity to spend some time in the United States military as a signal officer. Saw combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. Worked on Capitol Hill after my time on active duty. Worked on Capitol Hill with Congressman John Lewis. Went to law school there at William & Mary. When I graduated, I decided to come on back to North Carolina, where I ran for mayor in 2011. I had the honor and the privilege to serve 3 terms for my community as their mayor. I took a shot at the United States Senate because why? Because they said the decisions are made by those who show up. And so I wanted to make sure that I took my shot for not only for my community, but also because I understood the importance of having someone in the room that looked like us to make decisions on behalf of us and all of the folks that share our experience. When I stepped down from being mayor in 2017, I moved to the DMV area where I currently live in Alexandria, Virginia, where I am the president and CEO of the Capital Impact Group, which is a consulting government affairs firm that also focuses on cybersecurity, education policies, and also making sure that we're prepping the next generation to get involved and to get into good trouble. That's my good friend John Lewis said, get into good trouble. So tonight, Bishop, I'm honored to be here with you all and look forward to answering any questions of the folks from your community, from your church, and any questions that you have. So again, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you so much for being our guest tonight. And I think it's important tonight to have this conversation. Here we are, we're living in the middle of a pandemic. There's racial tension. COVID-19 has took over 166,000 people out of here. There's over 5.2 million confirmed cases that we know of. The U.S. unemployment rate is at 10% last time I checked, and well over 33 million people are unemployed. So we're in a bad way, and COVID is still moving through the land. It's not over. I still believe that if we don't do what we need to do, the worst is yet to come. And I think that this is an important platform that we need to talk about tonight about this election. It's a crazy time that we're living in. And white supremacy is on an all-time high, still moving through our land. And it's important that we make sure we understand why we need to vote and how important our vote is. There are so many issues that we want to raise tonight. And for all of you that are watching and listening, whether it's through Facebook, I think we're having some difficulties with Facebook, but it's being worked on. But those of you on Zoom, if we don't get done tonight, we'll come back next week and we'll do it again. Just make sure that everybody get their questions answered. And so the first question that we'll start this off, Chris, is help us tonight with why is it important, first of all, that we should use our privilege to vote. And you've been on Capitol Hill, you're former mayor, and so help us, and for those who might be on the fence and say, well, I don't like none of the candidates, so I'm not voting. So help us with that question, and we'll continue to rock as we go through.
Sure, absolutely. Well, before I get started, let me first say to you how just proud I am of the fact that you are using your platform to educate the folks that are in your sphere of influence as it relates to this topic. You know, so many times we have senior pastors who are afraid and shy away from this topic, wanting to get involved. You know, they'll use the excuse, well, you know, we don't want our tax exempt status to be put at risk. And, you know, I hear so many pastors that use that, which the reality is, as long as you don't get up in your pulpit and endorse anybody, you have an obligation as an individual who leads a flock of people to tell them to make sure that they are engaged on the issues of the day. It is not only about salvation, it is also about making sure that they understand that they have a responsibility to understand the policies that are impacting their lives. I will tell you that folks who are not engaged in this process, if you choose not to be engaged in this process, someone is going to make the decision for you. If your children are in failing schools, somebody made that decision for you. If your community doesn't have sidewalks, or you don't have good paved roads, or you don't have resources flowing through there because you chose not to vote, somebody made that decision for you. You know, my good friend, and that we laid to rest 2 weeks ago, my mentor, Congressman John Lewis, used to always say, and many of you probably have heard this many times before, that the vote is the most non-violent act that we have as a community to be able to engage and make a difference and to have our voices heard. The fact of the matter is that there is a generation of people that came before us. Everyone who is on this call tonight, if you have the capacity to get onto internet in your home, on a computer, that means that you either have a little bit of change in your pocket or a little bit of change in the bank, and that means that you have some way to be able to get access. That means that you are literally enjoying the shades of a tree that somebody planted long before you. And so there are so many individuals that have come before us that didn't have the right to vote, right? When we first got to this place 401 years ago, you know, the concept of an African-American, of a Black person, we weren't even African-Americans then, we were Negroes, we were animals at that time period. The thought that we had the capacity to vote was not even thought about. Then we became 2/3 of a human being, and then eventually at some point along the journey, we became a whole person. But it was because there were individuals that kept on scrapping, that kept on fighting, that kept on saying that I am a human, that you know that I have as many rights as you do. And the mere fact that anyone, you know, will sit back and say that they don't feel that that because these candidates don't have everything that they're looking for, well, you know what? Surprise. You'll never have a candidate like that will have everything that you want. But the mere fact is that you got to roll up your sleeves and you got to get to work, because this election has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, all of those individuals that are going to be impacted. We are enjoying the policies of individuals that came long before us. And you have to understand that your engagement today is going to impact the lives of individuals that you will never know their name. You'll never meet them. They will not know, but because you chose to roll up your sleeves and to get involved and to vote for someone that you believe has the capacity to implement policies that may just make your life just a little bit better, then that means it's going to make the life of somebody else in your lineage a little bit better.
Excellent. And I'm so glad you addressed that situation, because a lot of times people will say, well, my one vote won't count.
Oh.
You want to address that little piece right there?
Yeah. Let me tell you, if you just take some time and you Google throughout history, many individuals, members of Congress, council members, mayors, state legislators, governors who won by one vote. It's happened throughout the history of this nation. One vote made all the difference. So yes, your vote does make a difference. And the mere fact that you would think that your vote doesn't make a difference, means that you're not believing in a process. And so what that means is that you're going to share that with somebody else in your household that's going to end up not voting. So now here you have two people that didn't vote. And then that person is probably going to say, man, I'm not worried about these folks. Politicians are all criminals anyway. They're all crooks anyway. They don't care about me. And then they're going to spread that to somebody else. But you know who's going to vote? Are going to be the power brokers that understand that we're going to play in this thing called democracy, and we're going to play and we're going to make the rules that are advantageous to us. So you know what? I don't want you to vote. I don't want you to get involved. I don't want you to be engaged, because we know that by you not being engaged, we're going to be able to write policies that are going to allow for our corporations to get bigger tax cuts than you. We're going to make sure that we're going to have resources that flows to our communities for us and not for you. We're going to make sure that we work within the rules that have been written by the framers of this nation to make sure that we're advantaged over you, because you have chosen not to vote.
And when you talk about that and how the power brokers don't want us to vote, and just looking at this situation with the mail-in ballots, I just heard this morning that President Trump has said he will not fund the post office, which means I have friends that work at the post office now. I've worked at the post office before as well, and so I know the process, how it works on the floor. Those machines that sort the mail to make sure things are running flow, those have been taken out of the post offices. Over 31 executives last week was either moved to different places or fired. And so now that, and when I look at that, I still see voter suppression, because now you're trying to stop the mail-in votes. So for those out there that's watching tonight, Chris, can you talk about that a little bit? What are our options for the person that may be concerned about, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if I do a mail-in ballot, how that's going to work, or will my vote even get there since the mail is backing up? Address that to those who might be listening and those who may have that concern.
Sure. Well, I will tell you, depending on, not only just individuals here on this call, but if you have friends that are in other states, let me first say to you that mail-in voting has been happening for years. There are states that have been actually doing mail-in voting for years. Washington State, Colorado, there are multiple states that have been doing mail-in ballots for years with no issue. So of course you have an administration, who is trying to, they're trying to muddy the waters. Let's just call it what it is, because they're on the ropes. They know that they have basically, it's kind of like the individual, the emperor, that's behind the curtain, and now that we've pulled back the curtain and we realize that it's not the great wizard, that it's actually just an individual, who's really playing games. And the mere fact that they have put someone in, that is a donor, a mega donor for them in the past, to put them over the Postal Service, that are making what we call, quote unquote, business changes to impact the flow of mail. And that's to discourage individuals. That's sending a message that maybe some of you should say, you know what, maybe I don't want to mail in my ballot. Maybe I don't want to do that. What I will say to you is that we got to stand strong. That mailing in your ballot is still, if that's where you need to be at. If you don't want to stand in line on election day, if you're still in fear of COVID, you don't want to participate in early voting, then yes, you still should participate in mailing in your ballot through absentee voting. Every state has not turned to that option yet, but absentee balloting is still a very secure and efficient way for you to vote. Requesting your absentee ballot from your Board of Elections in your county, getting it in the mail, filling it out, dropping it in the mail, and doing it in a timely manner, right? You know that the election is November 3rd, but if you know that you don't want to go and stand in line on November 3rd, request your ballot in September, late September, early October, so your ballot will come in time. Early voting begins, you can start requesting your ballots now. And so know the laws, know the rules, be educated on that. Bishop Jones, I would say to you that if you haven't already done this, to share with your folks, what is the process and procedures in the county in which your church is located. And so that everyone in your community knows exactly what the next steps are for them, for those who don't want to get out there, especially for our seniors. There's no reason for them to be put in danger. There's no reason for them to be, for them to get up and have to go stand in line. They help them to request their ballot, understand what the rules are. There need to be a witness that needs to sign for your county. Whatever the rules are, you educate your folks, and then we just execute and we do it.
Now, before I get anyone that have any questions, please type it in the chat box. But just this week, it was announced, and probably last week too, that there were some ballots that were sent out, and where they wanted your information, but where you send it back, it was the wrong address. Can you address that a little bit?
Right. Let me just say how unfortunate it is that, oh, how wretched we are as human beings, right? Oh, how wretched we are. That the fact that there is a nonprofit that was set up, that was basically, they're here to sow confusion. That is why educating yourselves on the process is so important. But so many of us choose not to do that. So many of us choose to allow somebody else to tell us either how we need to vote or how the process works, where you have so many of us that should already know how that works. You live in a society where you have a democracy that governs you. And what you're doing is that you are literally giving up your power to individuals to tell you how to participate in a democracy. That shouldn't be the case. If you knew what was going on, if you knew that, you should have already known that when you got this in the mail, this is fraud. This is absolutely not right. But unfortunately, many of us, we're caught up in the hustle and bustle of our lives. I'm working 2-3 jobs. I'm trying to take care of my kids. My marriage is falling apart. I barely got to be able to pay the bills. We're caught up in COVID right now. And so you're not, we're not where we need to be at. And so those are those individuals that are trying to sow confusion. And then it's unfortunate. I'm glad that it was caught. But the reality is how many people, filled out the form, sent it back, and now they feel like they're done. And I've done my part. Unfortunately, that's why it's important that leaders like you, and hopefully some of your other peers in the community is doing what you're doing, which is helping to educate their congregation on the process. So that's why I encourage each and every one of you to know the process for your county, know the process for your community, so that you're getting what you need in order for you to be able to make the right decisions that's going to impact you and your family.
Okay, that's one question in the box that says, okay, let me read it here. It says, I was a little late. My apologies if you've already covered this. I'll be honest, this last election made me lose faith in our voting system. Hillary won the popular vote, but somehow Trump won the electoral college vote. Can you please explain the electoral college to me? I've tried reading and educating myself, but I still don't fully understand it. Great question, Patrice.
That is a great question, Patrice. And believe it or not, in 2008, I was a member of the Electoral College. So I absolutely am able to explain that to you. So each state has what is called a number of electoral votes, and it's based off of population. And so, of course, the Constitution says that the president must be elected by 270 of those votes. So, and before we move further, let me make sure I touch on another important process here. This is why the census is important, right? Because by filling out the census, it tells the population of your state, and if your state grows in population, that means that it grows in electoral votes. Which means that you get a certain amount of electoral votes based off of your congressional districts. And so that's how your electoral votes are decided, is based off of the number of congressional districts in your state. That's why we have to make sure we fill out our census, because if we all live in Virginia, if Virginia's population grows and another state's population shrinks, then that means that we may have the opportunity to pick up a congressional district, which means that we pick up one more one more electoral vote. And so electoral votes are determined by the number of congressional districts in your state. And so what happened was that even though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote across the country, the number of states did not add up to 270 for her, because the popular vote in those states did not equal victory for her. I'll give you an example. In the state of Wisconsin, good example. Wisconsin, I think it has, let's just say 8 electoral votes, 9 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton lost the popular vote in Wisconsin by, it was like 9,000, 12,000 votes in total. And so what ended up happening is that what normally would have went to a reliable Democratic candidate, if you support the Democrats, ended up going to a Republican candidate, because Donald Trump ended up winning the popular vote in the state of Wisconsin. And so their electoral votes, which is the number of congressional districts in that state, that ended up going to him. And so really what happens is that it's not just about the popular vote, it's about looking at the map. And that's why they always talk about battleground states, because the politics have become so polarized now that they know basically which states are going to go where, except for a sliver of states that can go either way. Example, North Carolina. North Carolina went for Barack Obama in 2008. North Carolina had not voted for a Democratic president in over 40 years, just like the state of Virginia. Had not voted for a Democratic president in over 40 years. But because Barack Obama won the popular vote in Virginia, he was able to get the electoral votes of the state of Virginia. And so, which is what took him over the top. And so that's what the Electoral College is. It's really just the electoral votes, which is the number of congressional districts in your state. They each get one vote. They add up. California has like 56 congressmen that represent them in Washington, D.C. So that state gets 56 electoral votes. Texas has 47. So that means they have 47 people that represent them in Congress. And so they get 47 electoral votes, or whatever their number is. And so that's why filling out the census is important. So because your state, it is said that the state of Pennsylvania, good example, is probably going to, because they have decreased in population over the last decade, from 2010 to 2020, they are more than likely going to lose a congressional district, which means that they're going to have a smaller electoral college vote in the 2024 election. And so somebody's population in another state has grown, and so which the rumor is that it's North Carolina, and North Carolina, who has 15 congressional districts, may now have 16 congressional districts, which means that North Carolina will have 16 electoral college votes in 2024.
Okay, Patrice, did that answer your question? While she's replying back, if anyone else have any questions, please put it in before we move on. I want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. The next question says, what about the superdelegates?
Superdelegates, okay, another great question. So superdelegates are very different from on election day. Superdelegates are individuals that are responsible, that come into play during the nomination of the individual to be president of the United States. So each party has what they call superdelegates, and the criteria to become a superdelegate is very different. Some is, you have to be a member. It just depends on what they define every 4 years, what makes up a superdelegate. You have to be a member of Congress. They're superdelegates. And then you have to be the state party chair. So Virginia, whoever the chairperson is for the state party of Virginia, they are a superdelegate. And so really what a superdelegate is someone that has one vote on top of the vote from the state that will elect the individual. So example, during the primary for the state of Virginia, which was earlier this year, the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia went for Joe Biden. The majority of the votes went to Joe Biden. So that means that Joe Biden would get the delegates from Virginia would be secured to him. Now, he didn't get all the delegates because Virginia has whatever amount of delegates they get. Every state is different. But because he won the popular vote during the primary, he gets a larger percentage of the delegates that are assigned to Virginia. And then all the other candidates that are running for president, based off of where they fell in the election on primary day, Bernie Sanders would get a certain percentage of the delegates, so forth and so on. So now you have the delegates that you get that are assigned to the state on top of the super delegates that live in the state of Virginia, which is our county, the Democratic Party chair, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner. They are super delegates, and any congressional members are considered super delegates. And so super delegates are utilized for the nomination of the party's person to be president of the United States. They have nothing to do with November or the Electoral College.
Okay, great question. Any other questions? Okay, just in case, if there's still questions coming in, we're having some difficulties with Facebook Live. So if you can text some of your friends and let them know we're having difficulties with Facebook Live, but they can join us in on Zoom. Second question is it possible to lose the popular vote and win the electoral vote?
Absolutely. His name is Donald Trump. Absolutely. His name is George Bush. For those of you who may remember, Al Gore, won the popular vote, but ended up still losing to George Bush. So yes. So I think the other question was, is it possible to lose the popular vote and win the electoral vote in a state? So if you lose the popular vote in the particular state during the primary, if we're talking about the primary, during the primary, no. The way that the votes are broken down during the primary will go to the various candidates based off of whatever whichever the delegate breakdown is for those candidates during the primary. Now, during the general election, it's all about the electoral vote of that state. It's winner take all. Whoever wins the popular vote of that state, that individual gets the electoral count for those individuals. So yes.
Okay. Until we can get some more questions in, let me shoot this question at you, Chris. Most people, when we have the election for the presidential election, they only think of the two people. That's the president and the vice president. But it goes deeper than that because they bring in their entire cabinet. Talk to us tonight and tell us the importance of that cabinet, because even in President Trump's cabinet, he has appointed over 200 judges, and those judges and their decisions is going to it's going to have an impact on our children that's coming up behind us.
Absolutely. I mean, whenever you're electing the president of the United States, you're not just electing the president of the United States, right? You're electing the people that is in his or her network, and we'll say her because we know that one day we're going to have us a female president of this country. But you're electing his or her cabinet, the individuals that they're going to appoint to that cabinet. That's going to have direct impact over your life. And so you're, which is very critical. But most importantly, this is always about judges. Let me let you in on a little secret. I got a lot of Republican friends. They absolutely do not like Donald Trump. My friends who work on Capitol Hill, that's in Congress, they absolutely do not like him. But what they like is the fact that he is helping to put the ideological judges that they want on the bench. These are lifetime appointments. And you may think, hey, that doesn't impact me. But you know what? It does impact you, because you never know when you're going to be caught up in some litigation that may cause you to want to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court. You don't know if there's some litigation that may impact your business that may have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And you know what? It may not make it to the Supreme Court because it may get struck down somewhere along the appellate journey, because there may be a judge that ideologically do not agree with you. And don't agree with what's on the faces of the case, and may make a decision not based off of the merits of the case, but really because ideologically they just don't get along. They don't believe in what you're trying to do. And so the judges are very, very important. For those of you who are on here who may be Democrats, I will tell you that's why folks want Ruth Bader Ginsburg to stay alive after election, because they know that if she passes away, they may, we believe that, Mitch McConnell will not extend the same courtesy. And I'm not going to say courtesy, and that's just being very nice, to Donald Trump that he did to Barack Obama when Barack Obama tried to put Judge Gorsuch, Neil Gorsuch, on the court before he went out, and Mitch McConnell said, no, we're going to wait for the next president to make their decision because it was so close to the election. So if Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if anything was to happen to her now, I don't believe that, that Mitch McConnell will extend that same courtesy. I think that they would try to fill that Supreme Court seat with someone who is ideologically aligned with their party. But and that's unfortunate. That's politics. So if you're a Republican and you're on here, then that may be what you want to do. But I will tell you that the courts is very important to my Republican colleagues, and them putting people on the bench, that they know will far exceed the tenure of Donald Trump in the White House.
And not only just the judges that's being appointed to the benches, but talk about a little bit with the school system, with the person that we have in charge now on this administration.
Oh, sure. So, of course you have an individual, the United States Secretary of Education, who has not demonstrated that they are a friend of people of African American descent. But let's even take it even further back. You have a lot of individuals who feel that, If you're not concerned about education in your own community, you're probably not even concerned about education nationally, because you know what? My children are grown. My children are grown out now. They're not in the school system. So I'm not concerned about what's happening with the children now. And so let me say this to each and every one of you tonight. You know, you need to be concerned. And shame on you if you're not concerned. And I'm going to ask you that you get more concerned. I don't care if you're 60, 70, 55, 45. You know, if your child has already graduated out of the school system in your local community, you need to be concerned about your local school board. Because why? Because there's a child right now, if you're in your 40s, there's a child right now that's in high school that may be an EMS person, that may take care, that may save your life one day, that may end up coming to your home and because you call 911. You know, the reality is that we are all connected as human beings, and we think that we all live in a bubble, when the reality is that we are all connected. And so your concern for a child, even though you may not have any children in the education system, is very, very critical. And so that means that you have to stay involved. You need to stay involved with the political engagement of your community until the breath cease, you know, to exist in your body. And so you have an individual that's currently now that's the Secretary of Education that don't care about you, and so and don't care about the next generation, because you know your kids are grown, right? And for those of you who have kids in the school system, you got to know what your school system is doing. What are they teaching? Are they teaching our history? You know, you have some school systems that are teaching blatant lies about the history of African Americans coming to this country. And how they were treated, and how we came of age. And so we, you know, it's important that we make sure that our heritage and our lineage is being taught. And how do we educate another generation of people that don't look like us, to make sure that they have the empathy for all of us as humanity? But you can't do that if you're not fighting for that.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions in the chat box? All right, next question that I think will help all of us. Here we are, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and some of us want to know, how can we participate? What can we do to help this process?
Absolutely, absolutely. So of course, you know, normally you would say voter registration is critical. But I would also add two pieces to that, which is voter education and voter mobilization. You know, voter education is critical. You know, who's on the ballot in your local communities? Who's running in November? You know, outside of the President of the United States. I used to tell my citizens when I was mayor, I have more control over your life than the person at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So if you live in the city limits of your respective community, the mayor and your city council folks have more influence over your day-to-day quality of life of your community than the President of the United States. If you live in the county of your community, then the Board of Supervisors has more influence over your life than the President and the Vice President of the United States of America. And so who's on the ballot in 2021 in 2020 for your community? Who are those individuals? What do you know about them? Have you gone to their website? Have you contributed to any of them if their values represent what you want to? Because many of us don't contribute to candidates that are running for office, which is a whole nother conversation that we could talk about at another time. You know, or are there issues that are going to be on the ballot that's going to impact you? Are they raising taxes? Is there a school bond? Is there what is going to be on there that's going to impact your water, your air? Are you concerned about that? Are you educated about that? And if not, you need to be concerned about that. And we need to figure out what we need to do in order to make sure that when we receive our ballot, or if we go to the polls, that we have exactly what we need in order for us to be able to make the best decision possible. Don't wait for that person who's all politically involved to tell you, you just need to vote for so-and-so because they're a good person. No, you're voting for so-and-so because you've done your research. And that's critical.
Next question in the box. Can you discuss the authority level difference between federal, state, city, county?
Yes. So again, like I stated earlier, the governing authority that's over each of us as citizens. Yes, if you live in the county, if you live in the city limits, or you live in the county limits, your local government is really the individuals that you need to know. Who's your board of supervisor? If you don't know who your board of supervisor is, if you live in the county limits, I would encourage you to find out who that individual is, because they are going to meetings. What some counties are twice a month, once a month, and they're making decisions on behalf of you, whether you like it or not. Why do you think you're paying what you're paying in your taxes for your home? Why do you think you're paying what you're paying in your taxes for your vehicle? Why do you think you're doing this? You're paying, and why the tax rate is what it is when you go to the grocery store and you buy some tuna fish, and it's the tuna fish was 99 cents for 3, but you're really paying 104. Where did you think that extra 5 cents came from? That came from your local government. Is that fair? Do you think it's too high? Do you think it's too low? You have to want to find out when is the next county meetings. And because we're in the era of COVID, I'm sure that many of those things are online. So it should be something that you should log into. Is it boring to some people? Does it seem monotonous? Sure. Yeah, it does. Government work is boring work. But you know what? But when you're sitting there and you hear them raising taxes on you, or they're cutting out more polices, or they're taking away firemen, or they're taking away the recreation park, or, that's at the local level, and then you have the state level, individuals who are basically managing federal dollars that are coming down on your behalf. Who's your state representative? Who is your delegate in Richmond? Do you know who he or she is? And then of course, you have your folks at the federal level, which is your president, and vice president, who you'll have the capacity to vote for in November. So again, there are things that can happen at the federal level that don't impact you at the local level, but everything will impact you at the local level because of the power that your local elected officials have. They have more influence over your life than the folks at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And the reason why is because you hear more about the folks on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is because they have bigger budgets and they run in TV ads and radio spots, while the mayor isn't doing all of that, but the mayor is impacting your life on a regular basis. Your school board is impacting your life on a regular basis. You got to know who your local elected officials are.
All right. Next question. Any other questions in the chat box? Until we get another one, I want to put it in reverse and go back to COVID-19 and all of the impact that it has actually made. And if the decisions are not made correctly, as far as listening to the scientists out here. Now, let me see how I can frame this, because there's a whole lot of conspiracies out here. Well, we shouldn't believe Fauci because he's not honest. So talk about that just a little bit, because we know based upon what we've heard, when it comes down to the president of the United States getting up on his own, talking about something that he don't know about, that has no education at all. Whenever you can make the question and ask the question, can we use disinfectant, and can we use some type of light that we can put in somebody's body to clean that? All of that inaccuracy is putting people's lives in jeopardy. When he went on and talked about the hydrochloroquine, people took it based on his word, and folk died. So just address that a little bit.
Dr. Fauci, who has been the top epidemiologist for the United States of America for 4 presidents. 4 presidents. I cannot, this is an individual who is very learned. They have spent their life. This is what he spent his life doing. And the mere fact that we as a country would question an individual who literally has spent their life. I mean, his record speaks for itself. It's not like all of a sudden he just popped up off of a turnip truck or he fell off of a turnip truck. I mean, this is what he's been doing for this country, protecting this country for the greater part of his adult life. Dr. Fauci's in his 70s now. He's been at the National Health Institute, since he was in his 20s. So he spent the majority of his life protecting the United States of America. And the mere fact that that we would have an administration that would challenge, not only just Dr. Fauci, but multiple scientists, multiple epidemiologists around COVID and its impact and the things that we should do. The mere fact that we made wearing a face mask political in this nation should make you pause for concern. Should just make you pause for concern. I just got back from Ghana. I went to Ghana earlier this year, back in August, back in February. I went to one of the castles on the Cape Coast. And there they talked about how they captured us as slaves. We were in the dungeons for 3 months. We were then put on the slave ships for another 3 months to move across the Atlantic, during the slave trade. 3 months on a ship. You get across the Atlantic, and then you are, if you survived, right? If you survived, because not all of us survived the dungeons. Not all of us survived the Middle Passage across the waters, and then to get out, and then to be sold into slavery off of a trading block. You talk about almost a year of being uncomfortable as a human being. Here we are to tell you to wear a mask for the last 4 months, 5 months, to wear a mask. And people are saying that their rights are being violated, that they have a right to do this. When at the end of the day, you're not wearing a mask for you. You're wearing a mask for my grandmother or your grandfather or your children or someone who may have a pre-existing condition. And that goes back to the mindset of recognizing that we are all connected. And so we act like these tribes, that we are these separate tribes instead of being one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. And that's where the disconnect is happening with us right now. It's because we're not working together as one. And so you have leaders who is not getting up behind their bully pulpit and saying, we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have leaders who are saying, you can wear a mask if you want to. It's not recommended. It's recommended, but not mandated. And so here we are, as you said, 5 million infected, 160,000, died just because of the lack of leadership, because you have individuals who won't believe in the science. I think it's unfortunate. I think that we have an obligation as leaders in our community to make sure that we're taking care of each other, and that's the message, that to be a beloved community, you have to care for everybody, even those who are ignorant.
Now, in the era of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you're going to see a lot of stuff that come across there, especially Russia stuff. Can you address that a little bit, and why they're so adamant about trying to put stuff out here, especially when it comes down to Black and brown people?
Sure. Absolutely. When you sow the seeds of discontent, right? Think about it. Let's not even start with Russia yet. Let's just start in the church. When you have individuals who, I'm talking over here, I'm creating drama over here, and now we're just making all the convolution taking place, and then all of a sudden we have confusion, around an issue that probably didn't really need to have an issue. We do it we do it ourselves. So we shouldn't be surprised that there's a whole nation that is trying to, pit us against one another, because they know that the racial divide in this nation is still very raw, that has not been addressed. And so, yes, they are using social media as a tool to continue to sow seeds of discontent. Because why? Because we don't do our own research. It goes back to what I said earlier. You really got to do your own research. And I know it's hard. I'm not here to say that it's easy, because you got to really dig through the foolishness. But, God gives us all this thing called the Holy Spirit, that's buried deep down inside of us, and when you are truly seeking truth and you're truly seeking knowledge, the word talks about knowledge all the time, and it will be revealed to you. It will begin to make sense to you, but you got to stay on it. You got to keep on looking, and then you can begin to see it for yourself. Like, this policy that this legislator just passed is definitely not going to do anything for the poverty, for the folks who are living in poverty in my community. Because why? Because you're seeing it for yourself. When you have a grandmother who's on food stamps, and her daughter is on food stamps, and her daughter's daughter is on food stamps, that's called generational poverty, right? So that means that there's policies that have been passed that is not helping this generation of families. You got to be able to see that. You got to be able to see that there was a man who came out of prison, who wasn't able to get a job. Yes, he messed up. He made a mistake, but he wasn't able to get a job. And so what is he supposed to do? But turn back to a life of crime and then end up right back in prison again, because there are policies in place that don't allow for him to be forgiven when he gets reintegrated back into the community. You see that. We have family members like that. You talk about why he or she can't get herself together, but they can't get themselves together because there is a system that's not allowing them to get themselves together. And because many of us, we have our homes and our cars and our education, we can't empathize with those caliber of people. Now, for whatever reason, they wasn't able to get over that threshold like you and I was able to. But it doesn't mean that they're not still there trying to get over it. And there are policies and barriers that are in place that really do keep people from getting over that hump. Because you know what? You only know what you know. And if I don't know that there is an opportunity on that other side of the wall, then I'm just going to keep on running into the wall until somebody comes and drags me away and put me behind bars. And so I think that, we have to realize that, there are different countries that are, especially Russia, who's trying to continue to confuse the water, muddy the water. Because why? Because they know that we're not educating ourselves and being smart about the issues and policies that are necessary. And so I would say that we have to do a better job of that as just individuals and human beings.
As well as vetting stories when they come out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's say I go to the polls in person to vote. I get there and there's a situation or something that comes up and they says, I can't vote. What do a person do when you feel like your right is being violated? Instead of just leaving and say, forget it, I'm going home. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to fight it. What should a person do?
They should ask for a provisional ballot. I am not leaving here unless I vote. So you request a provisional ballot, that could potentially still be counted, while you still go back and check your situation or whatever the case may be. So then you request a provisional ballot so that can be filled out. And don't let no one say that, they don't get counted or whatever the case, and you still request a provisional ballot. But the reality is this, you should check your registration, tonight, log on to the Board of Elections for the Commonwealth. Check to make sure that you are registered, that you wasn't purged from the rolls, because that happens in certain counties. This person hasn't voted for X amount of years. They probably not alive no more. We're gonna purge them from the rolls. You make sure that that should be an exercise that you should have, Pastor, where you send out a link, to all your folks in your congregation and say, hey, check your registration. Just want to make sure that everybody's still registered to vote.
Now, one more question, unless someone else has something in the chat box. Let me just throw this out here for you. For those who have, since the pandemic has taken place, we know there's a lot of the government places are still not working at 100% capacity, especially the DMV. Those who have moved from one address to another. And I know in my own family, daughter and son-in-law tried and tried and tried. It took them a long time to get in, to even get an appointment and maybe to get that license changed. Will there be an issue at the ballot box if you haven't been able to get your license, your address, your new current address changed?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the good thing about the Commonwealth of Virginia is that, you don't need an ID to vote, right? You just have to verify when you go to the polls, you just have to verify your address on the ballot. I mean, that whatever they have on their rolls, they don't even, they're not supposed to ask you for an ID. And even if it doesn't match, you just have to be able to say what address you have that's currently on the rolls.
Okay, so if I moved 30 miles from the area that I used to vote in, and it's another area, which address do I give? The new one?
Well, I will tell you this. If you move 30 miles from the current address that you're at, then I would ask you that you need to, because that means that you're in a whole nother county now, right? You're in a whole other county. So that means that you need to go ahead on, you need to register to vote in that county. Unless you're going to plan on driving all the way back to the other county to vote at your old polling station, or you have requested an absentee ballot, from that county, right, to be sent to you because you want to stay registered in that county, even though you've moved somewhere else.
Okay. All right. Before we wrap this up, any other questions out here? Let's see. Yes, there's one more in the chat box. Is there a service out there that can translate the lengthy legal jargon of legislation into layman terms?
Oh my goodness.
Other than yourself.
Other than myself, right? Oh man, I will tell you. You know what? I don't have an answer for that one. And I don't know if there's a service that's out there. I don't know if there, sometimes what you can do is, depending on who your representative is, right? One of the good things about your state representative, or especially your national your federal representatives, is that if you send them emails and say, hey, this bill just passed, I don't really understand it, can you give it to me in bullet points? Their legislative aides will do that for you. So, so each of you should have in your cell phone, the email address to your representative. And don't be afraid to email your representative. You put these people in office to represent you. And if there's a bill that's passed, you just send a message and say, hey, I'm confused about this. Of course, the representative isn't getting it. One of their aides are getting it. But they really do want to hear from you. They really do want to hear from constituents and say, hey, can somebody, can someone, break this down for me a little bit better? And if you still don't understand it, just ask the bishop to find me and I'll square you.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm so sorry we weren't able to get Facebook Live to work. I'm not sure what happened. There were some technical difficulties with Facebook Live. But before we wrap this up, I want to give you the opportunity for those who are listening. I know we've had practically about an hour on certain things. So if you had to close tonight, what would you say to us that are watching you right now? Based on your experience, where you see us going, what would you say to us?
Sure. So I would say to everyone here, and and forgive me if everyone on this call or who's hearing my voice is not of African American descent, but I would say to my African American folks who are on this call today, that you all are living examples of those who survived the Middle Passage, right? We are not descendants of slaves. We're the descendants of survivors of the slave trade. So which means that the strongest made it, from the dungeons, made it across the ocean, made it through slavery. The blood that is pumping through your veins is from a group of individuals that made it. That means that we are literally the best of the best that was able to make it across, to make it through these last 4 generations of our families that came here to this nation. We have an obligation, because again, I know that I have the opportunity to sit here today and to talk to you as an individual who was an officer in the military, who's an attorney, who was a former mayor, and someone who owns his own company because of someone who sacrificed long before I could ever be thought of. That's what's pumping through our veins right now. And so I have an obligation to make sure that my children and my children's children have the same rights and opportunities and access to opportunities to keep the lineage of my family moving forward. Every one of you have the same obligation as well. And it always starts in the ballot box. That is our power. That is where we can make a difference. Whether you think that your vote doesn't matter or not, I'm here to tell you that it does matter, and that it is critical that you exercise it every opportunity that you get it, at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. And you need to make sure that your kids are going with you so that they understand the importance of this vote. Because why? Because there was somebody that got hosed down for you, got bit by dogs for you, got hung from trees for you, got whipped in the fields for you, just so that we could have this right that we did not have 401 years ago. And so with that, I would say again, Bishop, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for this opportunity. And anytime you reach out to me, I'm all about, making sure that my folks are educated and ready, to do what they have to do at the ballot box, no matter who you vote for, right? This isn't about Republicans or Democrats or independents, this is about you exercising the right to vote.
Yeah, as we get ready to close, there's 2 things I want to say. I just got something that come across my phone, and it says President Trump requests mail-in ballot for Florida primary, despite recently blasting voting by mail. Hypocrisy at its worst. To Michael Sturdivant, if you're watching tonight, brother, thank you so much for hooking me and Chris up that this night could happen. Appreciate you, sir. If you can hear me, thank you so much. And Chris, man, I appreciate you for taking the time to come on our platform tonight, answer all of our questions, very articulate. So I do know when we have questions, I don't understand it, I'm gonna be ringing you up. Appreciate you so much, man. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I know when we had a conversation the other day, you were telling me you were helping the person in North Carolina that's running, that's on a ballot, that's running. Thank you for what you're doing, man. And it's making a difference. I think we have, if not anyone else, I've been enlightened on some things tonight. I appreciate you, man, because you're one of us, and you're helping us, and you're helping to educate us. And so, as the scripture says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And as long as we can continue to empower ourselves and get the knowledge that we need. My dad used to say this to me, and he still say it. He said, son, people can take a lot of things from you, but once you learn something and get it under your belt, they can no longer take it. And when you take the opportunity to learn more than one craft, people can never hold you over a barrel and put you in a situation where they can control your life. So learn everything that you can learn. And so this is the reason why that I'm doing what I'm doing each Thursday night, trying to inform, equip, and empower our people so we can become better and do what we need to do. So again, thank all of you who came on tonight. We will be posting this on YouTube, and hopefully we can get this on Facebook Live again, and maybe right before the elections take place, based on some of the things that happened, we might ride again with you, Chris. So I'll be contacting you. Man, thank you so much. New Life, here's what I need you to do for me tonight. Let Chris know how much you appreciate him by sending him thank yous or whatever little emojis you have access to let him know how much you appreciate him taking the time for us. I mean, there's so many things. This was his birthday week. So he took the time out. To say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And so the least we can do is let him know how much we appreciate it. Come on. Yep. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Bishop. I appreciate all of you. And look, if any of you all guys are on social media, you can find me on Instagram at I am Chris Ray, and that's R-E-Y is my last name. I am Chris Ray on Instagram. I am Chris V. Ray on Instagram. I am Chris Ray on Twitter. And Facebook, I have a page called I am Chris Ray. And just type it all in. I am Chris Ray. Please follow me there. And I answer any questions that you guys will ever have. And just, again, thank you, Bishop. Thank you for what you're doing. Because, you know, we can't do this stuff alone. God put it in me. He put it in you. He put it in these folks that are on here tonight. And I'm just thankful for this opportunity. So, again, I look forward to us riding together again to make sure that we're pushing the importance of this. So God bless each and every one of you.
And look, man, happy birthday to you. And so, look, can you do us a favor? Can you put your Cash App down in the bottom?
Oh, Lord.
There may be some people that might want to be a blessing to you, man, because you've been a blessing to us. We believe in sowing and reaping. So if you can, there you go. Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you, man. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. You guys be blessed. I'm going back to my birthday celebration.
All right. God bless you, New Life, and to all of those who came on to watch tonight. Thank you so much. We'll meet you back here at next week at the same time. We'll let you know who our guests will be. We love everybody. God bless you. If there's a certain subject that you want us to talk about, Tiara, can you please quickly put our information in the chat box of how they can send us a message? We'll be more than happy to do whatever we can to bring that subject to this platform. So again, God bless you, everyone. Thank you again for taking time out of your Thursday night schedule and riding with us on Let's Talk About It. Until next week, God bless you, stay safe, and we love you.